Yes, baby girl, I am lost because what the fuck is going on? Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. Hello if you're new. So today's video is going to be a review of 365 D&I, which is a film that just dropped on Netflix. I hope you are all doing as well as can be, and I also really hope that everybody is being proactive in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you're still on the lookout for some resources, I'll link some in my description. There is going to be some light spoilers in here, but I really don't think by me saying this information it's going to ruin anything for you, to be honest, because this plot is just so predictable. But heads up, there is light spoilers. But if you've watched this and you feel like my spoilers have ruined it for you, if you haven't watched the film, do let me know so then I can change my title to a spoiler review. I did do a watch along, so if you like this video and you'd be interested to hear what my thoughts were live, I'd strongly consider subscribing to my channel. Looking at the trailer, looking at the snippets, I was getting a little bit of a 50 Shades of Grey vibe. And there definitely was elements within that, but I think this film makes 50 Shades of Grey look good. That is how bad this film is, so heads up, this is a bad review, Shadi. Now going into this, after reading the description, it basically says that some criminal mafia boss kidnaps this woman and gives her 365 days to fall in love with him. And obviously I saw the trailer, so I knew there was some sort of sub/dom dynamic / BDSM dynamic to it. So instantly I was thinking, this is probably going to be problematic. And yes, it was very problematic. But going into it, I was kind of like, is this going to be like a good type of problematic? Like, it is so bad that it's entertaining. But I just feel like it was just so bad. Unfortunately, it was just terrible and horrible. And I probably wouldn't advise watching it. I'd say because it's trending, you might really want to check it out. I just thought it was bad and terrible, period. So my first issue with this film is the narrative. On paper, it's fairly simple, but it gets very complicated and way more complicated than it needs to be. They established the main guy, Massimo, I think his name was, as this mafia boss who's also a dom, and in terms of his criminal dealings, it was all very discombobulating. There was an incident where he was attacked and we weren't really sure when the recovery timeline was. It was just like one scene he looked like he was on his deathbed, and the next scene he was all right, and then they only addressed what really happened to him like a half an hour later in the film, and it was really confusing. It was confusing as to what he was actually getting involved in. Was he involved in sex trafficking? Was he not? Was he for sex trafficking? Was he not? It was all very confusing. And then this somehow leads us to the woman that he kidnaps, Laura. Again, the establishment of their relationship, the establishment of his obsession with her was poorly done, and it was very confusing in the beginning. The devices they used in terms of the first moment when we're introduced to, oh, this guy Massimo could be potentially obsessed with this girl. And then there's like some stalking going on, but it kind of plays on the fact of, is this reality? Is he actually there, or is she imagining things? But then there's also this element of, well, we haven't actually seen Laura acknowledge Massimo's existence. So is this reality, or is she just imagining things? So all of that was very discombobulating and very confusing. And then when the kidnapping actually happens, it's just very generic. It pretty much follows the same plot as 50 Shades of Grey, but it's far more extreme and far more degrading and far more problematic. Now, I found out that this was based on books as well, 3 books, just like 50 Shades of Grey. And I'm not sure who came first, because I can't really say who copied who, but there's similar elements in each of the narratives. So in terms of their relationship arc, well, actually, with 50 Shades of Grey, obviously Anastasia was not kidnapped. This was a consensual relationship. But the reason why this relationship is so problematic is because this wasn't built on consent. So this is an abusive relationship from the get-go. I guess with 50 Shades of Grey, there's a bit more nuance. I feel like there is a clear debate of, this is abusive, this isn't. Well, with this, you can't really argue with it. Like, from the get-go, this relationship is problematic and abusive. But they still have the elements of, you know, she falls in love with him. She starts to feel sorry for him. She starts to become obsessed with him. There's a crazy ex-girlfriend, just like in 50 Shades of Grey. She ends up pregnant, just like in 50 Shades of Grey. There's a masquerade ball. He takes her out shopping. He proposes to her. She accepts the proposal. And in terms of this relationship and how we see this relationship develop, it was just poorly written. It was just so rushed. It wasn't even like, you know, Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing. Like with Stockholm Syndrome, you start to fall in love with your captor. It was literally like day 2, she was already fucking him in the shower. It was just like, there was like no kind of believability in, okay, she's fallen in love with her abuser kind of thing. It was just very cheaply done and lazily done, and I feel like maybe if there's a bit more nuance there, I could get behind this problematic relationship, but I couldn't stand it. And I feel like they do this a lot, especially with this kind of erotica genre. They get a conventionally good-looking guy who's tall, dark, and handsome, and she's, you know, a good-looking girl, and we're meant to just stand them because they're good-looking and they're having hot sex all the time. It just didn't really sell the couple to me, to be honest. I'd be interested to hear from you guys, because I know with these type of stories, there's going to be people that I just think that this is a disgusting story, it's horrible, they can't stand it. And then there's going to be people that will acknowledge, yes, this relationship is problematic and toxic, but they stand them anyway. So I'd be interested to hear what side of the spectrum that you are on. But it's a no from me, Shadi. Baby girl, it's a no from me. Well, in terms of the dialogue was just so poorly written. Like, it was so bad. Obviously, it's in 3 different languages. It's in Italian, Polish, and English. And I don't think that they needed to have so many languages in there. I think maybe they chose English because they wanted to be relevant. Maybe they knew they wanted to market it towards a global audience, so they thought they'd go with English, and especially since it's kind of like a Polish and Italian girl. But I just kind of feel like it would have been better if, well, obviously that would have been changing the story, but I feel like it would have been better to stick to 2 languages, you know? Maybe she was Polish but knew Italian, you know, it's possible. But I preferred when they were speaking in their native language rather than English, because the English was not that great, and I feel like having bad English is fine, especially when it's not your first language. But to have a whole film in bad English, I didn't see the logic in it, to be honest. And I think the fact that the story was so bad anyway, the bad English just amplifies it. It wasn't all the way bad. It was literally just like sometimes here and there, some things didn't make grammatical sense. But it just added to the cringiness, you know? And then I guess a key thing in this film is the sex and the sex scenes. And there was a lot of graphic, raunchy sex scenes in here. Like, when I say graphic, I'm talking about, I was like, is this Netflix or is this Pornhub? Because it was just, you know, I mean, they didn't really leave much to the imagination. Some people might be taken aback from it, but I feel like if you watched the trailer, you knew what you were getting in for. You were here to see some raunchy sex scenes, honey. I know you were here to see them. So I personally just feel like they just felt really cheap. They could have definitely done something a bit more artistic, and I feel like I've even seen stuff on Pornhub look more artistic than what we were given in this film, and I was uncomfortable watching them because of the nature of their relationship, like, and how their kind of sexual interactions began, because they kind of made sexual assault sexy. Like, there were so many scenes where it was like clearly sexual assault. He's kidnapped her and he's touching her and he's doing all of these things for her, and it's just like a clear lack of consent, and this is like sexual assault, but then you're trying to make it sexy. So then it was like when they were having consensual sex, it just felt very like, oh, like, I don't know if I can find this hot or not, like, because it's just, oh, you know? So yeah, so I feel like the kind of glamorization of sexual assault in this was just absolutely disgusting and very problematic. I do question and I really do question the writer of this book. I guess I can't really blame the screenwriter because it's based on a book, but I really do question what this writer is, what the person who wrote this book is into, because it's just very problematic, very wild, very illegal, shawty. Police. And also in terms of the sex and the treatment of women in this show, it was very male gazy. There was lots of voyeuristic shots. There was many opportunities that they took to focus on bits of the female body. So there was one scene where she was throwing somebody into the pool. Laura was throwing somebody into the pool, but somehow we're getting a close-up of her bum. They were at a wedding, and somehow we're getting a shot of the bride extending her long legs up into the air. There was shots with Laura enjoying an ice cream cone with ice cream on it very enthusiastically. I think you know what I'm getting at here. And all of this, I feel like, added to the feel of the cheapening. Can't just blame the writer on this one. I think, you know, the director clearly views women in a certain way, I believe. We do have some voyeuristic and objectifying shots of Massimo as well, who's the main guy, who's the Dom. We do see a lot of his derriere. He was a problematic character, but I ain't gonna lie. The derriere, it was percolating, girl. It was percolating. But the sexualization and the objectification of men in this film was not on the same level as it was for the women in this film. I'm definitely side-eyeing the director. And then, of course, let's talk about it being problematic. Of course, like I said, it glamorizes abuse. And it's this narrative that we see a lot in this erotic films that, you know, rich men, rich good-looking men are these dangerous men that mistreat women or want women to submit to them. And I'm not really down with this narrative, because there's plenty of rich men, rich good-looking men out there that are decent human beings. But we see this narrative time and time again with this erotica, and then also with the whole sub-dom relationship. Some people have a problem with that dynamic anyway, but a core value in those relationships is consent and boundaries. And these type of films perpetuate that these type of relationships are only built upon found in abusive relationships, when that is not the case. So the lack of consent in this relationship is problematic in itself, and is not reflective of most sub-dom relationships, regardless of how you feel about them. So that was another issue that I had. I'd be interested to hear from people who are a fan of that dynamic. Do you feel like this was an honest depiction, or was it problematic in areas, or was it just wholly problematic? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. And then what is also problematic about this show is its depiction of Italian men. The Italian man who was the dog, Massimo, is a criminal, so that in itself is a stereotype. And the fact that, you know, obviously Italians are white, but Sicilians are of a darker skin tone. They have more of an olive skin tone. And even in Italy, they are stereotyped, and they are kind of seen as different to Italians of a paler skin tone. And the fact that they have him, this criminal, being this dom, taking this pale Polish girl as a prisoner, defiling her, doing all of this degrading stuff to her, it's just problematic. Like, why would you, as a Polish writer, think the villain is going to be this Italian guy? I just think it's problematic in my opinion. It's very sus in my opinion. I think it definitely enforces negative stereotypes, stuff about Italians being violent and angry and stuff like that, and being hypersexual. I have heard some stories, I ain't gonna lie to you. I've been hit on by a few Italian men. But at the end of the day, it is a stereotype. So I think it was problematic. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do you feel like Massimo's depiction as an Italian man is problematic? Let me know what you guys think. In terms of the acting, I'd say the acting was okay. I'm not really sure if I could fault the acting, to be honest, because I feel like they really did do the best they could do with this horrible script. But I wasn't really attached to any of the characters. I was just disgusted I really was just disgusted throughout the whole film to really care about anyone. In terms of the ending, honestly, again, I really just couldn't care less about these characters. Obviously, there's a situation with Massimo and Laura at the end, but like I said, I just couldn't care less. I couldn't care less about Laura or her devil seed sharding. And the fact that Massimo kept saying baby girl, it's a phrase that my sister uses a lot, baby girl. And now I'm just going to be thinking about Massimo whenever I hear her say it. So, yeah. Because it's trending right now, and I think because it's such a bad film, some people might enjoy it, yes. But I think because definitively it's a bad film, in my opinion. So I think a lot of people are going to find this film bad, and a lot of people are going to meme this film, and I think Baby Girl was going to be a memeable moment for this film. In terms of the other elements of production, I'd say the cinematography was okay. There were definitely shots that looked really nice. Even though I didn't like the voyeuristic shots because of what they represented and what they depicted, they were done well, I'll give them that. But the editing, I had a problem with the editing. There was lots of like cross-cutting scene that they had during one of the sex scenes where Laura was by herself and Massimo was with somebody else on that plane. It was just very discombobulating, and it just didn't add to the raunchiness. It was just like it's just a bit discombobulating. They could have literally had them as two separate scenes. There were some transitions that were really cheap. It was just like, you know, very iMovies, the fade to black. It was just very simple. It was just like, really, is this what you're being paid for? Like, I really could have done this editing, to be honest, guys. The color grading switches, one shot would be this kind of warmish color, and then one would be like really gloom and bluish. And again, the messaging, I'm just kind of like, are you trying to be impactful here? Because I'm not feeling very much impact. So I just feel like they should have just kept the color grading, one color grading all the way through. The score was pretty basic, to be honest. It felt very archivey, and the soundtrack was quite bad as well. They definitely could have picked some better music. There was just one song that kept playing. I was like, this person cannot sing. Can we stop hearing this soundtrack, please? Hair and makeup as well. I feel like some of the stylistic choices, if we're meant to be believing in this affluent lifestyle, didn't really make sense. Like, there was like one dress that I saw, I was like, that looks like it's from Fashion Nova. Like, I'll be serious right now. It doesn't look like no luxury brand. And Laura's blonde wig, at first I thought it was okay, but as I was looking at it more and more, it looked very wiggy. So we needed a better wig artist. And the fact that she wore it to a wedding as well, like, baby girl. So yeah, taking everything into account, I'm going to give this film a 1 out of 5. This is by far one of the worst things that I've watched on Netflix. I can see its appeal though. I can see it having a following, this film, because of what it has in it and, you know, the fantasies that it taps into. But I just thought that this film was trash and it was horrible. It was problematic, and it wasn't problematic and toxic in a good way. It was just bad from the beginning till the end. In terms of watching it, it takes like a good 20 minutes to 30 minutes for the kidnapping to begin. And it just takes far too long for the kidnapping to begin. And then, so in terms of if you were really intrigued and curious to watch it, I'd say watch it until about 10 to 15 minutes after the kidnapping. And if you're not feeling it, then go. But I feel like within the first 10 minutes, I knew it was going to be a shit show. I knew it was going to be a rubbish film, to be honest. So if you're getting those vibes when you go into watching it, trust your gut, honey, and don't waste 2 hours of your life. It wasn't exactly 2 hours. For people who actually enjoyed this film, I don't think it would be necessarily too long. For people who actually did enjoy this film or will enjoy this film, but yeah, I just feel like the kidnapping definitely could have been brought forward a bit. Apparently, this is based on books, and there's 3 of them, so there potentially could be a second film. It's got lots of views, the trailer. It's trending, so I think this is going to be a bad film that probably does get a sequel. It wouldn't be my first thing to go and watch if it was renewed for a second sequel, but I would watch it for review purposes and just to see if it gets any worse, to be honest. I'd be curious to see how bad it can go or if it gets better. But yeah, I personally wouldn't advise watching this film. I'd say don't waste your time. You know, wait for a fan to come out and watch that instead. I feel like that would probably be more entertaining. If you haven't watched it yet, do let me know if this is something that you were or are still thinking about checking out. And let me know if you came onto this review and you're just like, nah, it ain't for me. And I'd be interested to hear from people who have watched it. Did you get all the way through it? Because I feel like with me, 5 minutes, if I wasn't watching to review, I would have switched off after the kidnapping because of what happened afterwards. I was just like, nah, This ain't for me, but I watched it. Guys. I watched it all, and I am a bit traumatized, to be honest. I said I have filmed a watch along for it, so I strongly consider subscribing to my channel so you know when that drops. I've got like quite a few videos I need to upload, so I'm not sure when each one is going to be going up, so I definitely would subscribe and put my notification bell on as well, so you'll be the first to know. I'm now on the road to 1.4 after hitting my goal of 1.3 subscribers, so thank you to everybody who helped me reach that goal, and thank you to everybody who's going to help me hit 1.4 as well. Till next time, guys, bye.